Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Shadowwraith and today I'm going to be talking about a bit of an interesting topic. Now this can be applied to any miniature wargame or anything like that, but I'm going to go with 40k for an example for this, and it is threat assessment and doing a bit of mental maths in your head, so it's all about percentages and things like that. And it's one way that I can do quite well playing 40k or Middle-earth strategy battle game. The basic premise of this is you know what your army can do. So I'm going to stick with 40k for now. If I'm running, say, my Scions, for example, I know I've got my squad with 4 plasmas, my squad with 4 melters, I've got my Valkyrie, things like that. Okay? And the first initial thing I'm going to do at the start of the battle is I'm going to assess the threat of each of my opponent's units. So if he's bringing something like a full squad of Hellblasters next to a captain of some sort, allowing them to reroll ones, that is going to be high threat, because 30-inch range, if they can get within rapid fire, they become extremely high threat. So I'm going to prioritise this target. Along with that, people don't tend to bring just one threat. There are multiple threats. So he could have these Hellblasters along with a repulsor or something heavy with lots of guns. Okay? And that is also high threat. Now, I'll look at my positioning from the get-go of where I can dish out damage. I want overlapping fields of fire. What that means, in case you don't know, is I want my units to be able to target multiple enemy units, and I can also focus in with multiple units on one of their units. So crossing over my fields of fire. So I've got a squad of Scions to the left, and I've got my Valkyrie to the right, and another squad of Scions in the centre. They can all target the Hellblaster squad if I need them to. Now, here comes the percentages kind of side of things. I'm not going to hit you with a bunch of numbers, but the idea behind this is maybe later on in the game, first turn, not so much you kind of want to survive first turn. If you're playing Scions, you're probably in space anyway, so it's not too bad. But later on in the game, you've got your troops down, you've got your reserves in, and I know I've got some melters pointed up the backside of the repulsor, and I've got my plasmas all over the place with overlapping fields of fire. I'm then going to think for a second, before I start rolling dice and going, I want to shoot my plasmas, I'm going to think, how many plasmas, or how many hotshot volley guns, or whatever, do I think is going to be enough to nullify the threat of the Hellblaster unit? So, I'll see how many options I've got. I've got 3 squads that can aim in on them, but I've also got 2 of those squads that can aim in on the repulsor. I think the Hellblasters are probably going to be more of a threat, so I can dedicate 2 squads, because I think that'll be enough to take them down to a good number where I don't have to worry too much. This is just examples. I'm not saying 2 squads will take down a squad of Hellblasters. This is just a scenario, because I know I've got melters on the other tank and things like that. So the chances of me nullifying that unit are high enough that I can dedicate other things to the other threats. That's all it is. The best way I can explain it, if you ever played XCOM, there's multiple targets you can pick with your soldiers, it gives you a percentage. I know my sniper can probably take out that dude over there, but what if he doesn't? So I will always have a backup. So I'll dedicate 2 squads in my head to that squad. If they don't do enough, I know I've got my Valkyrie that can dedicate a bit of firepower. If, best case scenario, my 2 squads do nullify that unit, that Valkyrie can then be used to fire into a different unit. And that's pretty much the simple version of the the thought process behind it. And what a lot of people try to do, and I do this as well, is I shove multiple threats in people's faces. So for Death Guard, I'll shove up my Blight Haulers, and I'll shove up my Close Combat Plague Marines, and I'll shove up maybe a Demon Prince or something like that. Okay, they've got multiple different threats. Demon Prince is shielded because he's near the Plague Marines. Sure, but he's got multiple things to think about. Okay, and the point of this is to get around the multiple things. Which ones can hurt your army the most? Now, if you're a very ranged army, not very good in combat, you're going to probably be thinking, well, I can probably take 3 Blight Hauler shots, but if those Plague Marines get in, that's not going to be good. So I'm going to dedicate more into the Plague Marines, get rid of them, and have a backup in case I don't do enough damage to them. But that backup is also got enough range to fire upon a different target, a different threat. May that be the Demon Prince if I manage to cripple the Plague Marines enough. So yeah, that's one way of thinking about it. The other option you've got to think is if you have got multiple threats in your face, and they're all about the same severity, so maybe it's 3 times the same squad that are very good against your build, your army. Perhaps, you could sweep across and do wounds across all units, or you can choose to focus fire. Focus fire, fire everything you can into one unit to almost guarantee eliminating that threat. So at least he doesn't have 3 half threats on the table that can go and engage different units. He now only has 2 or 1.5 if you've got some firepower to dedicate into another squad. Now, I'm hoping this all makes sense. I would have done diagrams, but I don't have time at the moment because it's 1 AM. Speaking of which, let's go over overlapping fields of fire and how to set things up. Now, all you want to do is basically you want to spread your threats out a little bit, because if you concentrate all your threats into one area, like some people do, it's called castling. It's not. It can work, absolutely. 9th edition is more about holding the centre of the board, grabbing the objectives and things like that, so you don't want to castle too much, but castling can work. However, let's say my opponent decides to castle with Death Guard, whatever. Okay? He has now got all of his threats, his high level threats, to me in one area of the battlefield, which makes it a hell of a lot easier for me to get overlapping fields of fire on him and surround that so I can get most of my army firing at what I want to be firing at. Now let's say he spread them out across the entire battlefield, across his deployment zone. Now it is much harder for me to get overlapping fields of fire on all the threats. I'll have to pick and choose. So when you're deploying, I would suggest not turtling up too much, not castling up too much. You want to have different bubbles of threat across your battle line, just to give your opponent something to think about. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as it were, because as soon as his army's in range of that thing, that's it. He's going to fire everything at it. If you've got something ridiculously tough that can take it, sure, castling up is fine. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying don't always do it. Death Guard can take a battering, okay? But Space Marines, for example, Primaris Marines, yeah, they're fantastic. Sure, if you think they're OP, they might be. But if he's got Guilliman with his Hellblasters, with a bunch of other horrible things, heavy intercessors and stuff like that, all in one area to benefit from the same auras and things like that, at least I know that in maybe a turn, I can get my entire army in range of that blob. It may be a death blob, but I can grab cover and I can pick and choose where I want to be, because I can spread out and take the entire battlefield. He, however, might not be in range to target all of my threats to him on the first couple of turns until I get into position. And when you get into position, you're going to be firing first, hopefully. And this is why reserves are absolutely fantastic. Okay, reserves can be used in many different ways. You can jump them down to grab objectives. You can jump them down to gain secondary objectives as well, so like Line Breaker or, control on all fronts or whatever. Occupying all 4 corners of the board, or quadrants, should I say. But you can also use it to gain this magical overlapping fields of fire. Okay, I'm going with ranged because predominantly 40k is a ranged combat game. There is close combat in it, but I think they suffer quite badly compared to a very solid shooting list. You look at the AdMech Dakar robots, they're absolutely devastating, but they tend to stay together. They tend to stay near someone with the ability to let them re-roll something. But I can get overlapping fields of fire onto that unit, and there's only so much punishment they can take, especially with things like Scions or anything with slightly decent rend, or AP, it's not Age of Sigmar. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And again, before the battle starts, have a look at the terrain that's on the table, the board setup, because you should have terrain. It does something in this edition. Like, whether it's enough, that's a different debate, but it does something. You want to get into positions where you're harder to hit than he is for you to hit. So if you can drop your Scions, for example, or Terminators, or whatever, something that's got enough DACA to be worth dropping in behind cover but being able to fire upon the enemy, do it, absolutely. Obliterators for Chaos are absolutely fantastic for this. They can drop down, they've got the Deep Strike special rules, so no CPs for dropping them in, and they've got relatively short range, but they're very good at getting into a position where they're A, in cover, and B, have multiple targets to pick from, because you don't always have to go behind the enemy. It works, sure, but you don't always have to. You can get them into a good position turn 2. So pretty much to summarise it, you want to, first thing before you start a game, when you're deployed or you've seen your opponent thing, army, you want to have your army spread out to the extent that you can engage different parts of the battlefield if need be. You want to analyse and make a threat assessment of what your enemy is using, or opponent should I say, and kind of prioritise them in your head. Use triage. Which one can cause the most amount of damage? Which one needs to be dealt with the quickest? And you can home in on that. So if he's got one mega death unit, like, I don't know, Mortarion for example, or something, that if he gets into combat he will devastate your gun line, he's going to be one of your top priorities, and you want to get as many fields of fire, or whatever you want to call it, on him as soon as possible, so you can pump as many shots into him to give you the greatest chance of taking him down. Because you won't need your entire army sometimes, but you've got reserve shots. So if you think these 2 tanks can take him down, if they roll average, make sure you've got maybe 1 or 2 other things that can fire in, just in case they don't. And the second thing is, later on in the game, always be thinking about overlapping fields of fire. You're going to move forward in that position. They might be closer to an objective, but can they contribute to the battle as well? If they can, perfect. If they can't, is there a position you can get to where they can cross over the fields of fire with another unit to home in on a threat? And that's pretty much it. I just want to put this video out because I was thinking about this today, and I was talking about it with some other gamers I work with, and they agreed. Let me know what you think. Do you do this before a battle? Do you think this is sound advice? Or if you think I'm talking a load of rubbish, do tell me as well. I always like to hear what people think. If you like this video, because it's the first kind of like mini kind of tactics 40k I've ever done, do hit the like button. And if you're feeling especially saintly today, do consider subscribing. But even if you don't do either of those things, I still hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.